Stream is on. Yep. What's going on, guys? Welcome to another video. I'm your boy Narik Chase, and we are Streamline Podcast, which is episode 114. Since we continue on where we left off, and I don't want to linger too long, but let's get into the gist of it. This video is going to be just talking about female-led comic books. Now, I wanted to do a series in each decade, so this one, episode 114, is going to be female-led comic book films in the 1980s. And even though there aren't that many, I think I do got a lot to talk about in terms of this. But before we get into the video, be sure to hit that like, share, subscribe, and that notification button to get the best of what we got going on. Every Friday, every Saturday at 5 p.m., Streamline Podcast will be uploading videos. So be sure to stick around for that. We have a lot to discuss. Let's go ahead and dive into it. Now, the 1980s is when we started seeing kind of the first signs of the resurgence of comic book films. And it did start off with the Superman film and, to varying success, which started sparking more interest. Now, that's not to say that comic book films weren't a thing. There are, the Batman in the 60s, they had the Linda Carter era. There's always been like comic book films, and it started progressing more and more. And even though there were starting to have more eyes on them, initially there weren't a lot of female-led ones. Now, again, we're not talking about Linda Carter, but let's go ahead and start in the 1980s. I've tried my best to go back and watch as many as I could, and this not only includes just comic books, but also like manhwas and manga ones as well. I would have liked to place Lady Snowblood on this, but that came out in the 70s, and this is the 80s. So there were 3 prominent comic book films with female leads. Now, when I say comic book, I'm not necessarily saying superhero. Just mean literally something adapted from comics. And there was the 1985 Red Sonja film, there was the 1984 Sheena film, and there's also the 1984 Supergirl film, which was part of the Superman franchise, starring Christopher Reeve. And I got a lot to say. So, why were there so few female-led comic book movies? And the easiest answer is to say back then there was a very few male comic book films too. If you think about it, really the most prominent one was the Superman featuring Christopher Reeves, and those films again started sparking interest in comic book films. Now there were like television shows as well. I believe the Superboy one was one as well. There was a a couple movies as well, but they weren't really prominent. And I do remember there was a Superboy one, and now the Flash came out in the 90s, I think. There was the Spider-Man, but I believe that came out in the 90s as well. But they had like animated ones as well, but we're talking about the films. But so these are the main ones. But that's really the real reason why female-led ones weren't really prominent back then, was because like it was just starting getting the gear with the male ones. And think about it, Superman started it off pretty much, and Batman 89 actually helped push it even further. So there really wasn't, and not to say that there weren't female characters in comics, which there plenty were. Again, Red Sonja, Supergirl, you got Sheena, you got, what was it? You got Storm, you got the Invisible Woman, Elektra. You got so many female characters in comics, but at the same time, back then there weren't really that. Now that's not to say that there weren't female-led action films. Hell, I started watching some Pam Grier films from like the 70s, and those things were off the chain. Not to mention, some of the best action films came out in the 80s. Not to say, not to just go into those stereotypical two of Sarah Connor from Terminator or Ellen Ripley from Aliens, but they were among some of the highest ones to come out. So it wasn't like there wasn't an interest in female-led films or female-led action films. Just at the time, there just weren't a lot of comic book films. But that's the reason why there weren't that many female-led comic book movies. And and that kind of leads into the next point, the comic book movie landscape before Batman '89. Really, the main thing that dominated, from what I've seen, was pretty much Superman, and there were again series that were happening then, but they weren't as prominent. But it wasn't until '89, because the thing about it was Superman, Christopher Reeve sparked more of the golden age, where optimism, bright colors, fun, jokey, not really serious. But the Superman films did kind of start to get a little bit more serious, but they kind of sparked that golden age a bit, or is it the silver age? I'm not sure, but it's kind of the really really kid friendly age of it. And then Batman '89 started doing more of the adult stuff. So there is kind of that. Now, where do Red Sonja, Sheena, and Supergirl kind of fit in it is the Supergirl aesthetic does fit more of the Superman. Sheena was actually a bit more, now I want to say darker, but a bit more adult oriented. And Red Sonja kind of fit like a little bit in between the two. It was a good fun film, because I used to watch it when I was a kid, so I really liked that one. But I wanted to talk about, let's just talk about the main actresses that actually helped to push female comic book films. Helen Slater, who played Kara Zor-El / Supergirl in the Supergirl film, Bridget Nelson, who played Red Sonja, and Tanya Roberts, who ended up playing Sheena in Sheena. I actually thought all three actresses did a great job, despite whatever they got going on the films and the knowledge that I do have of them in their comic book interpretations. I think all three actresses did a phenomenal job. I really do like Helen Slater as Supergirl. I think she has a very iconic look and feel to her that's reminiscent of Christopher Reeve's Superman, of even though she doesn't really represent like the true American way in the film, she has good heart, has that interesting hero's journey, has a good look about her, that optimism of a brand new day and believing the best in people and stuff like that. I do like that about her Supergirl performance. And then Sheena, although I don't know much about Sheena, because to me she just comes off as like a female version of all of these seem like they're derivatives now that I think about it. You got Supergirl, which is kind of like derivative of Superman. Sheena's kind of like derivative of Tarzan. And then Red Sonja's kind of derivative of Conan. But they all kind of got their own things going. But the Sheena movie, I hadn't heard much about it. It was until recently that I actually sat back and watched the Sheena. And I actually liked it. I thought it was pretty cool. I didn't mind the characters. I didn't mind the story. That was and I think Tanya Roberts does a good job as Sheena. She has a very exotic look to her, and the weirdest eyes I've ever seen. She's got those like weird vampire eyes, or eyes like alien eyes or something. They're just weird. They're like that unnaturally bright, unnatural pale. It's like I'm used to seeing people with like dark eyes or something, because she has a really really weird pale eyes. They're like very hypnotic or something. But I liked her Sheena. I thought Sheena was actually a likable character. I thought she was fun. I did like the way that she was able to communicate with like the animals and stuff and with the people. Was Zambuli, the Zambuli tribe, or something like that. But I actually liked her character. She actually made me interested in wanting to read more of the comics. But this is, to me, might actually be kind of the standout, even though she's kind of weird representation, is I do like Bridget Nielsen as Red Sonja. I did a video comparing her to Matilda Kuntz. I didn't mean to say that, but what is that lady name? Let me get her name right, because I already butchered it. But what is her freaking name? Lutz. Matilda Lutz. I did end up doing a video comparing her to Matilda Lutz, and honestly, I didn't know much about Red Sonja back then. I thought this was okay. She's a cool character. Then I read her in the comics, and she looks completely different. But Bridget Nielsen nails the personality, the feel of the character, how she sounds, how she moves, how she fights. Definitely. And I got to say it off, all three of them, to me, as much as I like Helen Slater as Supergirl, and much as I thought Tanya Roberts as Sheena was actually pretty cool, I have to admit that Bridget Nelson definitely steals the show because I just love the way she just presents herself. She feels like a very strong woman. She feels, and I like her personality that she appears, compassionate. You see how she's dealing with the young prince and the weird guy with the bone. She's very compassionate. She's very likable. She can handle herself. She can stand. Even the fight she has with Arnold in the film. Uh, I just like her personality and how she carries herself throughout. And when we look at like strong female types, and it's just believable seeing how she can fight and stuff and kick dudes' butts, she actually is like the definition of it to me. But I actually liked her. I like all three actresses, but I think that she does a really, really good job. Um, which one of these films, in my opinion, kind of captures the material better, the source material better? I'm not sure. Now, I'm sure about Sheena, but I felt like Sheena was very grounded. And if the comics are a reflection of this film, I would say that Sheena probably would be the best interpretation. That'd probably be the closest. Again, I've read Red Sonja, but Red Sonja doesn't really, it's been rebooted several times, and I'm not sure the Red Sonja that they were adapting from that era, as if the movie been adapted from that era. So I'm not sure like how close the story is, but in terms of the character, now maybe not the way she looks, but just definitely how she carries herself. And then there is the Supergirl film, and outside of her character, I don't really see it. But I would have to imagine Sheena. But I can't be definite about this because I haven't really read any Sheena comics. So I guess I would toss it up between Red Sonja and Supergirl. I don't know, because if we're going about the era of the 80s or the 70s or whichever era that they were basing the Supergirl, Red Sonja, or Sheena from, I don't really know because I hadn't read the comics from those eras. So I'm not really sure which one sticks the landing towards the source material. Now, if we're going by nowadays, I would probably say maybe Red Sonja, because again, Slater does a great job with Supergirl, but if we're looking at the movie and the story and stuff, no, I would think that. But then again, like I said, if Sheena's story is as grounded it is in the film as it is in the comics, then probably Sheena. But I don't know. That's a good question. I would actually have to go back, rewatch the films again, and then go back and kind of read like a couple of the comics leading up to the films to get a better idea. So that'd be an interesting little project to see. That'd be a pretty interesting project. What are some of the best action scenes? Well, I know in Sheena there was one cool moment where they had to break. She had to break into this prison that was occupied by these douchebags. Not a prison per se, but a base, and she was using the animals to overrun it. That was actually pretty cool. And then there was another scene as well where I think she was being chased or somebody else was being chased, and it was like a mixture of animals coming in to help, and then some of like the natives were that was she was working with kind of came in and kind of jumped the hunters slash bad guys. That was actually pretty cool. There was also kind of the conflict towards the end of the film that I actually thought was actually pretty cool. That one scene with that lady, they were in a helicopter, and I think the birds flew. She called the birds. The birds flew over there, pecked the lady in the eye, and then she fell out the helicopter. That was hilarious. I must have watched that scene like 3 or 4 times. It was freaking funny. Supergirl, if we're looking at action scenes, not to be honest, that there ain't really no action scenes in there that's like actiony. I mean, there's the fight at the end, which is fighting that invisible shadow beast thing. That was pretty cool, but I don't think it was long enough. I think it was pretty cool. I just don't think it was really long enough. But it's not like she had a knockout fight. It wasn't like, in Superman 2 where he was fighting the Kryptonians, or in Superman 4 Radioactive Man, or whatever that guy's name was. It's kind of a bummer considering it's kind of a bummer considering that, you know, she was fighting using magic. And when she fought the magic chick lady, no. Besides that, I don't know what was going on with that film. I mean, the only prominent action scene outside of the ending was the part where the, what was it, the crane was one of the construction machines, bulldozer. It was a bulldozer, I believe. Started wilding out, destroying the town, and I was like, okay, why did it have to be a bulldozer? Why couldn't that be in just like a bad guy or something? I had so many things to say about that freaking film, but the action there really is no action that I could really say. There's like no, like I said, outside of the bulldozer, and then it's like she went over there and just dismantled the thing in like 2 seconds. So I was like, they're not really actiony. Sheena had some pretty cool action sequences. One of my favorite from Red Sonja actually was when she met Arnold's character. It was Lord something, but come on now, everybody know that's Conan. Well, they should have just let that be the third Conan film, and just could have said, "Hey, my name's Conan," or I don't know. It's always bundled with the Conan movies anyway, and he acts and looks just like Conan. So there is a fight sequence between Red Sonja and his character when they initially meet. Great, it was great choreography. She handled herself well. And it's cool because this is Arnold at his prime, and then you see them fight, and she physically looks like she can keep up with them. So that was actually a pretty cool fight. The choreography was pretty cool as well. That was also one of the most memorable ones. It's like they were in a pit with water, and then the water was like a mechanical alligator creature. And yeah, that was actually a pretty cool sequence because everybody had to go in, and that was actually pretty freaking cool. I'm gonna go back and rewatch that film, but that's actually probably one of the most memorable scenes of that film was that them being in the water having to fight this mechanical creature, and it's like a mechanical alligator. I'm not sure if it was mechanical, but to me, it was it looked mechanical, and you know, it was during the heights of that, like the magic, the sword, the sorcery. So I wouldn't put it past the creature being mechanical, but it was actually a pretty cool moment. The practical effects of it, you see Arnold sitting here swinging and jumping in the water. They're actually fighting this thing. It's actually pretty cool. The ending itself, even though the fight with the main villain wasn't the best, it was still like fun. It's still kind of campy, but it's still fun. You got to see the actors doing their things, and you know what I'm saying, the physical bits and stuff. And there were a couple of more fight sequences throughout the film, but I think those were pretty much the biggest ones. And then I kind of like when they were fighting, there was this deal between the two where she was like, well, the only man that she said she would bed was somebody that could beat her. I believe that's what it was. And I was like, so it was kind of this competitiveness between the two throughout the film, but I did like it. In terms of the costume designs, the African, the Sheena film with the Zambui, I did like the way they looked. They felt very grounded with the clothing and stuff. I'm not sure if there's actually actual tribe or country, but I like the way the costume looked. And even with the Sheena outfit looked pretty cool. It's kind of weird because if you look at what she was wearing compared to what the other people were wearing, it kind of comes off that Tarzan-y look, but it was like, you know, cool. Supergirl, I liked her outfit. It looked pretty cool. If you look at Red Sonja, again, probably to stand out because if you look at her outfit, does she look like Red Sonja? Heck no. She don't look like her in the least bit. But, you know, the sword and sorcery, the barbarian look, she had it. The costume design looked really cool as well. I'm interested to know if that was actually her hair, or was that like a wig or something. I want to know that. And then you look at all of the other characters. The little Asian kid had a pretty cool. Now his guard, looked just ridiculous. How do you got this Asian kid as a prince and you got this fat white guy as his bodyguard? I don't get it. And then their outfits look totally different. You would think they look similar, but they look totally different. And then the chick who plays the villain, I cannot remember her freaking name, but I love this woman. Every time I see this woman in the movie, I think she does a fantastic job. She's beautiful. She's a great actress. And as the villain, I think she did a pretty good job. I like the outfit too. Very flashy. This woman is like runway looking throughout this entire film. Best supporting cast. Probably, I would say, as much as I do like the Red Sonja, I think Sheena probably had the better cast. Not only did she have more villains to deal with and what they were doing, which they were trying to, I believe, kill off the Zambui tribe to get that land, because it was a dude that you would think was actually trying to help them out, wasn't helping them out. So the villains, you got the motivations with the villains and their relationship. I didn't mind them. Sheena was actually pretty cool. The people that she grew up knowing was actually pretty cool, and kind of the love interest guy who I didn't like at first. I was like, oh yeah, he's a love interest. It turns out to be a pretty good character. I would say Sheena probably had the best supporting cast. Now, you could make the argument with Red Sonja and Supergirl to a certain extent, but I think that Sheena had a better one. I think the characters was a bit more fleshed out. And let's just be honest. If we're looking at Red Sonja, that's not the supporting cast, that's the main cast. So we're not going to go that way. And which heroine had the stronger arc? Now, this is a very interesting question, because between these three, I don't know. I think Sheena kind of does if we're looking at a film, because in this movie she has the most, if you're going by the character from the film, the adventure that she goes on throughout this film, she's interacting with more modern day people, because she's so used to being in a tribe with the animals and being with her tribe and stuff and dealing with those people, but not really, I don't think, dealing with like people in civilization and stuff. And then by the end of the movie, you see she's got a pretty good grasp of things, even though it's still fish out of waters. So I didn't mind that. I think she probably had the best arc. I do like Red Sonja's character, but I don't think she was like an arc, because her character kind of was like the same but she was still like a likable character. But I think Sheena probably grew the most. Now, you could say Supergirl, but then again, if you look at the arc, she didn't really have an arc. And even with the fish out of water aspect of it, it wasn't really fully explored. And the whole thing of her going to college and faking the papers and stuff, I don't understand what the hell these people were smoking or sniffing when they came up with that idea. But Jesus Christ, they could have came up with something better. I would probably say Sheena came off with the best actual arc, with the best arc. And did these films deserve a better script? I'm sitting there writing like I got paper. Yes, I think all three of these films. I think personally, Supergirl definitely deserved a better script. Sheena, I think, still holds up, especially with the practical effects and stuff. Supergirl is the one with the most special effects and everything, but I think because Red Sonja and Sheena don't use really special effects like that, I think in terms of let me get out the special effects. Supergirl definitely needs a better script. That was one of the worst decisions they had with the script. Everything from the light ball thing from Argo City to her coming there, not interacting with Christopher Reeve character or any of the other characters besides Jimmy Olsen. Who gives a damn about Jimmy Olsen? Yeah, they put Lana Lang in to be Lois's sister there, but it's like you get either put Lois in there. I forgot why they couldn't get Christopher Reeve back, and why they could not get Margot Kidder. I think that's what her name was. They should have got more of the cast to make it fit. Yeah, Jimmy's cool and everything, but come on, really? Could have got somebody else. But the script with the school, the script with the evil chick, the motivation, just basically that movie. There are some good moments here and there. The love interest, like literally, the script just it's just bad. Red Sonja, I think it's a solid sword and sorcery. Could there be some things they could bump up in terms of like maybe world building and adventure or something like that? Maybe some character, a better character arc. I feel like the little boy had a better character arc than pretty much everybody else in the film. But Sheena, I could see Sheena. I think Sheena holds up. I think Red Sonja holds up. I don't really think they really need a script. Probably the only thing I would change it with Red Sonja if they were to do a better script is probably change Arnold back to Conan and then just make Bridget Nielsen look like the Red Sonja character from the comics because she's the character, but she doesn't look like the character aesthetically. But I think all of them actually could do with a better script. Um, and can these films succeed if they were remade today? This is a funny question because I saw Supergirl, and it's not doing so well. Now there's a bunch of reasons why. Stupid marketing tactics. Not the marketing tactics weren't stupid. The actors, the directors saying stupid stuff, pissing off fans. The budget was way overblown. Kind of the way the movie is set up within this new franchise. Just a bunch of things. But I think in a better world with the movies and the way things are going in Hollywood and media and stuff, yes, Supergirl can succeed. Sheena, I think if it was remade today, I think it actually could work as well. Same thing. I seen the Red Sonja too. Yeah, that wasn't. maybe it's because I don't. Maybe it's because it's just been a lot of crappy comic book movies coming out lately. But okay, the Red Sonja remake, I guess you could say, I didn't really like it. The Supergirl remake, I liked. It's just not going to do well. And Sheena, I think Sheena could have a potential to be good if they remade it, but just don't do what these two did. So, let's see. And then the good question is, which one of these movies are aged better? And I have touched on this. I don't think Supergirl's aged well at all. Everything from the special effects to the the writing, the direction, some of the performances, definitely some of the performances. But I think Sheena still holds up. Good practical effects, good performances, a solid story. Maybe not the most original, maybe not most flashy or stand out, but it's still a solid watch. And then you got Red Sonja as well. I think it's still solid. Yeah, the special effects that they do haven't aged well, but the practical works, the fights are pretty cool. The way the acting is actually really good. Set designs are really good. The story might not be the most flashy story, but it's still a solid watch. So between the three, I would say Sheena and Red Sonja definitely have aged and they still pretty much hold up. Supergirl, not so much. And definitely not so much. And honestly, Supergirl is probably the biggest missed opportunity. And that's because it follows in the footsteps of Superman, Christopher Reeve's Superman series. So you would think, and the heart's definitely there. You can definitely see the true blue colors of it, the belief of good people and stuff like that. You could definitely see kind of that golden age feel to the film. It's just that the script's just bad, all around bad. It's definitely the biggest missed opportunity to kick off Supergirl in films. But let's go ahead and rank these films. I would definitely say if it was worst to best, Supergirl's definitely the worst. I would say, um, I'm tossing up because I don't want to just say I like Red Sonja because of nostalgia. I've watched Red Sonja since I was a kid. Sheena I've recently seen, but I guess I would say Supergirl's the worst. Sheena Sheena is number two, and then Red Sonja is definitely the best to me. Now, people probably would throw Sheena and Red Sonja interchangeably. You could say for a more solid story than probably Sheena, but I like Red Sonja. So I I do like Red Sonja. It does have a special place in my heart. It's one of the best '80s films. So I would say Red Sonja is the best. Sheena is the second, and then the worst pretty much is Supergirl. So, all right then, guys, in the comment section below, let me know your thoughts. Which one of these female-led comic book films is your favorite? Which one's your least favorite? Um, are there any other ones that I happen to miss? I don't think I missed any because there weren't really that many out there. But hey, these are just the ones that I did see. Be sure to hit that like, share, subscribe, and that notification button to get the best of what we got going on. And we'll definitely catch you guys later.